Have you ever wondered how your life would change if you woke up one morning in a completely different era? Would you want to see someone you lost in the past make up for a big mistake, or get a hint from the future and change your destiny? How exciting does the idea of defying the flow of time, stepping out of the ordinary, and becoming a time traveler sound to you? Today, we will take a step into the fascinating and equally mysterious world of time travel, one of humanity's oldest dreams. In this adventure, where the boundaries are pushed by science, philosophy, and imagination, we will explore the question of whether it is truly possible to travel to the past or the future. Are you ready to lift the veil of time? 1. Why did humanity begin to dream of time travel? The idea of time travel is one of the most fascinating manifestations of humanity's existential curiosity and hunger for the unknown. Throughout history, humanity has dreamed of traveling back in time to correct its mistakes, or peeking into the future to learn its fate, free from the chains of time. At the core of this desire lies not only the longing to reconnect with what we've lost and reclaim missed opportunities, but also the ancient instinct to overcome the fear of death and achieve immortality beyond time. From the oldest myths to modern popular culture, time travel emerges as a gateway of hope, shaped by humanity's what-ifs. The appeal of time travel is also fueled by the complexity of the human mind. The regrets of the past, the hustle and bustle of the present, and the uncertainty of the future push people into a mental journey. The dream of being able to change the past or see the future is a reflection of the desire for control and power. Thanks to this dream, people think they can be more than what they are in the moment and influence the course of history. Each generation nurtures the idea of bending time in order to correct their mistakes or make the future better. At the same time, the desire for time travel is also a product of social memory and collective consciousness. Societies cling to the dream of correcting the past or saving the future in the face of great disasters and traumas. In mythology and legends, gods who rule over time, or heroes who transcend time, are symbols of humanity's desires. All these stories can be read as a kind of resistance developed by humanity against its helplessness in the face of time. In conclusion, the idea of time travel is not just a science fiction fantasy, but an existential hunger that lies deep within human nature. The human brain, which seeks to make sense of the past, the future, and the present, questions both its own limits and the laws of the universe through the idea of time travel. Bending time is actually the most magical symbol of our desire to rewrite our own lives and destinies. By the way, if you like my video and subscribe, that's the most effective way to support me. 2. Should we perceive time as linear or cyclical? How we perceive time deeply influences not only scientific truths, but also cultural and philosophical thought. In Western civilization, time is generally thought of as linear, meaning a line with a beginning and an end. However, in many Eastern cultures and ancient belief systems, time is perceived as cyclical. Everything repeats itself, and life and death, destruction and rebirth are part of an endless cycle. These two approaches play a significant role in our understanding of time travel and its possible consequences. The linear perception of time allows us to think of time travel as moving along a train track. We leave the past behind and move toward the future. And if we somehow manage to get off the train and return to the past, we can change events there. However, in the cyclical understanding of time, the past, present, and future are constantly intertwined. Here, time travel is like diving into a river and repeatedly returning to the same points. Both models open different doors to humanity's dream of transcending time. The scientific background of these two approaches is also quite interesting. In modern physics, time is generally modeled as linear, but some cosmological theories, especially those regarding the Big Bang, have suggested that the universe may be cyclical before and after the Big Bang. Additionally, while the human brain's perception of time is mostly linear, it can exhibit a cyclical structure during dreams or intense emotions. The fantasy of time travel becomes even more complex when these different perceptions are combined. The question of whether time is linear or cyclical is actually a reflection of humanity's attempt to make sense of its relationship with the universe. Whether we see time as a straight line or a circle affects which philosophy of life and which values we choose. Therefore, time travel is not only a scientific issue, but also a profound existential and cultural debate. 3. When and how did the idea of a time machine first emerge? The concept of a time machine dates back much further than most people think. The term time machine, in its modern sense, was first used by the famous author H.G. Wells in his 1895 novel, The Time Machine. However, people have imagined ways to transcend the boundaries of time since ancient times, exploring themes of controlling time in mythological stories or magical objects. The idea of a time machine has become a more concrete dream with scientific developments and technological advances. The idea of a time machine is a concept that challenges the possibilities of science, as well as reflecting deep desires of human psychology. With Wells's novel, The Time Machine became not just a fantasy, but also a technological goal, the last great invention that humanity wanted to achieve. This invention has been combined with the hope of solving the mysteries of the past, learning the secrets of the future, and changing the course of life. The time machine has been conceived as a utopia shaped by human what-ifs and regrets. For the scientific world, the time machine is a serious topic of theoretical debate. Especially after Einstein's theory of relativity, it has been debated that time is a bendable dimension, and that, under the right conditions, it is theoretically possible to travel to the past or future. Wormholes, black holes, and quantum theories are among the fundamental elements that fuel this idea. The time machine is no longer just a subject of literature, but has also entered the realm of science. Today, the concept of a time machine has become a symbol in both science and popular culture. This theme, which is constantly explored in movies, TV shows, and games, continues to reflect humanity's deepest fears and greatest hopes. Regardless of whether it actually exists, the time machine persists as an idea that challenges the limits of human imagination and defies the laws of the universe. 4. Does the theory of relativity make time travel possible? Einstein's theory of relativity fundamentally changed our view of time. In particular, the idea that time is not absolute, but varies depending on the speed and gravity of the observer, brought new life to the debate on time travel. Theoretically, time slows down in an object approaching the speed of light, and an observer aboard that object could jump into the future relative to the outside world. This is known as time dilation in the scientific community. One of the most exciting aspects of the theory of relativity is that time can indeed be bent for travel forward in time. The fact that an astronaut traveling through space ages more slowly than those on Earth is a practical consequence of this theory. However, it is important to note that the theory of relativity does not provide a direct solution for traveling backward in time, i.e., to the past. While some space-time geometries in theory seem to allow for time travel to the past, how this would work in practice remains unknown. Nevertheless, the theory of relativity does not completely rule out the possibility of time travel. On the contrary, it suggests extraordinary ideas about how time might function under certain extreme conditions in the universe, such as around black holes or wormholes. In particular, it has been proposed that closed time-like curves could theoretically form around rotating black holes, potentially opening a door to the past. These ideas show that time travel is not just a science fiction fantasy, but a serious area of scientific debate. In conclusion, although the theory of relativity does not directly open the door to time travel, it has strengthened the scientific foundations of this possibility and further expanded the human imagination. The mysterious secrets of the structure of the universe show that time is not linear, and perhaps we are approaching a day when these theoretical possibilities will become reality. 5. Time travel theory with wormholes. Wormholes are one of the strangest and most fascinating solutions of Einstein's general theory of relativity. These structures, which are thought of as tunnels between two different points in space-time, theoretically offer the possibility of instantaneous travel from one point to another, and even to another time. If such a wormhole could be created, it would form the scientific basis for the question of whether time travel could one day become a reality. The idea of time travel through wormholes has captivated both scientists and dreamers alike. This is because these structures can connect not only different points in space, but also the past and the future. However, no real wormhole has ever been observed, and although they theoretically exist, creating and controlling them in practice is nearly impossible. Nevertheless, this idea has sparked groundbreaking discussions in the scientific community. In theory, if the two ends of a wormhole are anchored to different time frames, a traveler entering one end could emerge from the other end in the past or future. However, it is believed that exotic substances such as negative energy would be required for this to happen. Additionally, potential paradoxes and the stability of the universe are among the biggest obstacles that could limit such travel. The theory of time travel through wormholes has become an indispensable source, not only for scientists, but also for popular culture and literature. This concept combines the unknowns of the universe and humanity's wildest dreams, placing the question, will time travel ever be possible, at its center? Whether it will ever happen or not, the idea of time travel through wormholes continues to push the boundaries of the human mind. 6. If it is possible to exceed the speed of light, will time travel be possible? According to the laws of physics, the highest speed at which anything can move in the universe is the speed of light. However, humanity has never ceased to question whether exceeding the speed of light would mean time travel. Theoretically, if an object exceeds the speed of light, the concept of time would be overturned. The line between past and future would blur. This situation is frequently discussed as one of the cornerstones of time travel. In modern physics, it is argued that exceeding the speed of light is impossible both energetically and structurally. This is because as an object approaches the speed of light, its mass approaches infinity, and infinite energy is required to move. However, some theoretical models have discussed hypothetical particles called tachyons, which are said to move faster than light. If tachyons truly exist, they could offer extraordinary abilities, such as sending signals to the past. Although the idea of exceeding the speed of light fuels the desire for time travel, the paradoxes and logical dead ends that this would create are seriously questioned. This is because a journey into the past could violate the principle of causality and create significant chaos in the functioning of the universe. Scientists suggest that such situations may be prevented by the universe itself, potentially forming a principle of time protection. In conclusion, whether exceeding the speed of light opens the door to time travel remains a subject of intense debate. While current knowledge suggests that surpassing the speed of light is practically impossible, this idea continues to fuel endless curiosity and research in both science and the human mind. 7. Does changing the past create paradoxes? One of the most debated topics when it comes to time travel is the paradoxes that would be created by changing the past. If a person travels back in time and changes any event, these changes could completely disrupt the reality of the present. One of the most famous examples is the grandfather paradox. If a person travels back in time and kills their grandfather, how can they exist? Questions like this push the logical boundaries of time travel. Paradoxes are seen as one of the biggest obstacles to the possibility of time travel. Scientists suggest that changes made in the past will either be corrected by the universe or create a new reality, parallel universe. In this case, every change creates a new timeline, and the original reality is preserved. However, there is still no clear theory that resolves all paradoxes. The emergence of paradoxes in time travel raises not only physical, but also philosophical and ethical issues. Even a small change made by a person in the past could lead to enormous consequences through the butterfly effect. This seriously questions the practical applicability of time travel and increases the responsibility of being a time traveler. These paradoxes related to changing the past have fascinated science, literature, and cinema, giving rise to countless stories and theories. The answer to the question of whether time travel is real may lie in the resolution of these paradoxes. For now, the logical conundrums posed by interfering with the past remain one of the greatest puzzles humanity is trying to solve. 8. The butterfly effect and time travel. The butterfly effect is one of the most famous examples of chaos theory, which explains how a small change can lead to enormous results over time. In time travel, this effect means that even the smallest action in the past can cause the present and future to take on a completely different form. When a butterfly flaps its wings in the Amazon, a storm can erupt somewhere else in the world. Similarly, a small decision made in the past can completely alter the course of history. The butterfly effect often takes center stage in time travel stories. If a time traveler changes a tiny detail in the past, a chain of unexpected events is triggered, and the results are often disastrous. This situation further emphasizes the dangers and responsibilities of time travel. The idea that every action has the potential to create a domino effect makes time travel both fascinating and terrifying. From a scientific perspective, the relationship between the butterfly effect and time travel is linked to concepts such as unpredictability and deterministic chaos in complex systems. It has been scientifically proven that even the smallest changes in the past can lead to significant differences in the future. For this reason, the principles of do not change anything or minimal intervention are frequently emphasized in time travel theories. The dramatic effect of the butterfly effect on time travel has both fascinated and frightened humanity. That is why there is always a warning in stories about time travel. Be careful. Everything you do in the past can cause storms in the future. Everyone who plays with the idea of time travel must also bear the weight of the butterfly effect. 9. What is the grandfather paradox, and why is it important? The grandfather paradox is one of the most famous and striking logical problems in time travel. In this paradox, if a time traveler goes back in time and kills his own grandfather, his own birth becomes impossible. However, if they were not born, there would be no one to go back in time and kill their grandfather. This logical loop opens the door to a deep debate about whether time travel is theoretically possible. The importance of the grandfather paradox stems from its questioning of the principle of causality underlying time travel. This is because, within a chain of cause and effect relationships, contradictions arising from changes to the past threaten the functioning of the universe. Such paradoxes either render time travel directly impossible or necessitate the existence of alternative realities and parallel universes. Scientists have proposed various theories to resolve situations such as the grandfather paradox. One of these is the multiverse theory, which suggests that the changes made by the time traveler create a different universe from the original timeline, thereby resolving the paradox. Another view is that the universe somehow prevents such events from occurring, meaning that illogical events are automatically prevented. The grandfather paradox has been a source of inspiration not only for theoretical physicists, but also for philosophers and writers. Representing one of the most challenging questions of time travel, this paradox stands as one of the most beautiful examples of humanity's endless curiosity about the nature of time and its own existence. 10. Quantum foam and time travel in multiple universes. Quantum physics is a branch of science that fundamentally challenges the concepts of time and space. Quantum foam is the theory that, at the smallest scale of the universe, space and time are constantly fluctuating and exhibit a micro-level, foam-like structure. At this level, the laws of classical physics do not apply. Everything is based on probabilities and uncertainties. This gives rise to the idea that time travel may be possible in different ways in multiple universes. According to the theory of multiple universes, at every moment of decision, a new universe is born in every quantum possibility. In this scenario, when a time traveler goes back in time, the original timeline remains unchanged, while the traveler transitions to an alternative universe. Thus, paradoxes and logical contradictions are eliminated, as every change creates its own universe. Time travel in the quantum foam offers a freedom that transcends the laws of classical physics. These ideas have been met with great interest in both the scientific community and popular culture. Because with multiple universes, an infinite network of reality, where every possibility exists, can be imagined. In this structure, time travel ceases to be a universal journey and turns into an adventure filled with infinite possibilities. Thus, a time traveler can exist in a completely different universe with every choice they make. Quantum foam and multiple universes take the concept of time travel beyond a journey between the past and the future, turning it into a profound question that challenges the building blocks of the universe and the nature of reality itself. The question of whether time travel is possible may lie hidden within this micro-universe, within the foam. 11. Is it possible to travel to the beginning of the universe? The beginning of the universe has been one of humanity's greatest mysteries. This moment, known as the Big Bang, is considered the point where time and space began. If time travel is truly possible, could we theoretically travel back to the birth of the universe, to that immense energy explosion? This idea is not merely a scientific question. It also symbolizes a profound quest for the origins of humanity and the fundamental meaning of existence. The fantasy of traveling to the zero point of the universe with a time machine, in a sense, means witnessing creation with one's own eyes. For physicists, reaching the beginning of the universe means accessing knowledge beyond what we currently know about physics. Because at the moment of the Big Bang, the laws of physics as we know them did not apply. Matter, energy, time, and space were intertwined. If a time traveler could reach this moment, could they obtain answers about why and how the universe came into existence? Or would this journey be an adventure that pushes the boundaries of reality, consisting solely of the unknown? Additionally, would a journey to the beginning of the universe mean touching the cause of everything that exists? The answer to this question is purely speculative and currently beyond the reach of our technology. To travel to the beginning of the universe, one would need to defy the flow of time and survive under conditions that are incompatible with human existence. Quantum chaos and extreme density are conditions that would make human survival impossible. Perhaps this is where the limit of time travel lies. The moment of the universe's birth is neither a point in the past nor a scene torn from the future. It is the absolute zero from which everything began. Nevertheless, the idea of traveling to the beginning of the universe continues to inspire both scientists and the imagination. The answers to the questions, where did we come from, and how did everything begin, may lie hidden in this journey. If time travel ever becomes a reality, humanity may have the chance to see the secrets of the universe with its own eyes. Who knows? Perhaps this journey will be the greatest adventure of mankind. 12. Infinite cycles and repeating time. In some ancient cultures and modern science, there is a belief that time is not linear, but cyclical. In other words, the universe is in a constant cycle of repetition. This idea appears in Indian philosophy as yugas, or in ancient Greece as infinite cycles. From the perspective of time travel, these cycles lead to a vision of the universe where the past and future are constantly intertwined and everything repeats itself. Are we part of a constantly repeating time? In physics, especially in cosmology, some scientists argue that the universe was born, grew, and then collapsed, only to be reborn again. In such models, time is not a line, but a circle. If such a reality exists, time travel is not just about going to the past or the future. It also means traveling through different versions of a life that is repeated over and over again in an infinite cycle. Perhaps every moment we experience has already been experienced once before. The idea of infinite cycles is also reflected in human psychology. Recurring dreams, déjà vu, or the belief that history repeats itself are cultural manifestations of this search for cyclicality. In time travel, humans sometimes go back to the past and relive the same events, or find their own footprints in the future. This cyclical nature adds a new dimension to the meaning of life and the concept of destiny. Ultimately, whether time is cyclical or linear is still a matter of debate. However, with the idea of time travel comes the possibility of getting lost in endless loops and reliving the same life over and over again, which is one of the deepest fears and curiosities of the human mind. Perhaps this is why, in stories about time travel, heroes are often forced to repeat the same mistakes, because time is sometimes doomed to repeat itself. 13. The difference between seeing the future and going to the future. Knowing the future is one of humanity's oldest desires. However, there is a subtle yet crucial difference between seeing the future and going to the future. Seeing the future is often associated with prophecies, dreams, or visions found in science fiction works. In this case, the person remains in their current location and merely observes what will happen through a window. Going to the future, on the other hand, means physically jumping into the next time frame, being there in person, and taking part in events. This difference creates great dramatic depth in time travel fiction. Seeing the future often makes people feel powerless because they cannot intervene in the course of events. However, going to the future transforms the individual into an active subject. Being in a world that already exists, interacting with people of the future, observing social order and technology, truly transports a person beyond time. This is why the theme of going is often found more fascinating in time travel narratives. From a scientific point of view, traveling to the future is a possibility allowed by the theory of relativity. In a journey approaching the speed of light, time slows down, and the person experiences a short period of time, even though many years have passed for the world. In this way, it is theoretically possible to go to a future 1,000 years from today. However, seeing the future, that is, observing what is happening from the scene, remains a theme belonging to science fiction. This difference is also meaningful for human psychology, because seeing is not enough to know. Going is to experience and live. The appeal of the dream of time travel lies here. Who wouldn't want to wake up in the future and experience the unknown with their own eyes? 14. Time travel in parallel universes. The idea of parallel universes is one of the most interesting solutions proposed by scientists to overcome the paradoxes created by time travel. According to this theory, with every choice, every quantum event, the universe splits into two, and a new reality emerges where every possible outcome occurs. So, when a time traveler goes back in time and changes something, there is no change in their own timeline. It simply opens the door to a new future in a new universe. This idea not only eliminates problems such as the grandfather paradox, but also resolves the ethical and logical contradictions of time travel. Traveling through parallel universes spreads human existence across infinite possibilities. Every decision, every intervention, symbolizes the birth of another universe. The time traveler thus becomes the master of multiple destinies, simultaneously changing both the past and the future. Parallel universes are also frequently explored in popular culture, especially in science fiction films and series. Stories in which heroes live different lives in different universes, encounter themselves, and experience diverging destinies attract great interest. Such narratives transform time travel into an endless sea of possibilities. Ultimately, time travel in parallel universes stands before us as a concept that challenges both science and imagination. If every intervention creates a new universe, time travel means not only dealing with the past or the future, but also with multiple realities. Perhaps this is the ultimate limit of human freedom and responsibility. 15. The psychology of a person who travels through time. Time travel is not merely a physical journey, but also an adventure at the boundaries of the soul and mind. If a person wakes up in an era outside their own time, the feelings of alienation and shock they experience are indescribable. Losing loved ones, habits, language, and culture shakes the very foundation of human existence. The psychology of a time traveler experiences the most extreme forms of the feelings of not belonging and loss. Beyond this, the loneliness and alienation created by time travel can lead a person into a deep identity crisis. Nothing that exists in the past or future aligns with the time traveler's familiar order. The time traveler is unsure whether they can return or adapt to the new world. This uncertainty can lead to psychological issues such as anxiety and depression. The time traveler must also cope with the weight of the changes and disasters they witness. An intervention in the past can lead to disasters in the future, or information from the future can make the present unlivable. The ethical responsibility on the shoulders of the time traveler creates great stress and guilt in every human being. Ultimately, time travel would be an experience that challenges human psychology, sometimes even pushing it to the breaking point. This is why, in many works of science fiction, time traveler heroes are often portrayed as lonely, melancholic, and tragic characters. Time travel is the most radical way for humans to confront themselves and the universe. 16. The difference between observing the past and living in the past. When it comes to time travel, most people do not realize that there is a big difference between living and watching the past. Watching the past means being merely an observer, unable to intervene in any way. It is like watching a documentary or looking at archive footage. Living in the past, on the other hand, means being actively present in those events, becoming a part of that moment. This distinction also determines the ethical and philosophical dimensions of time travel. Watching the past is the safest way to gather information without harming history. However, living in the past carries the risk of interfering with history and changing the course of events. This is why a sharp distinction is made between observer and participant travelers in time travel narratives. The psychological traces left on humans by both are different. Technologically, creating a device that can observe the past, that is, recording and observing the past, may be theoretically possible in the future. However, actually living in the past means bending the rules of the universe and breaking the chain of causality. For this reason, scientists view observing the past as the most appropriate way to avoid harming history. In conclusion, the difference between observing the past and living in the past highlights the depth and risks of the desire for time travel. Humans often want to understand what happened without interfering, but sometimes they go so far as to risk changing the course of history. This dilemma is one of the most compelling aspects of time travel stories. 17. Time travel and free will. Time travel takes the free will debate to a whole new level. If a person can go back in time and change events, does that mean they are truly free? Or is everything already predetermined by fate? This question constantly arises in time travel narratives. If it is possible to change events, how free is a person? Some philosophical approaches see a contradiction between time travel and destiny, because changing an event in the past leads to the future being completely reshaped. However, according to some theories, there is a self-fulfilling mechanism in the universe, and every intervention ultimately restores destiny. So, even though humans appear to be free, nothing changes in the bigger picture. This debate also has significant implications for human psychology. The hope that past mistakes or regrets can be rectified reinforces our belief in the power of free will. On the other hand, the idea of an unchangeable destiny leaves humans feeling helpless. Time travel places humans right at the center of this dilemma. Ultimately, time travel does not solve the problem of free will. On the contrary, it deepens it. It raises the most fundamental questions about ourselves and the universe. Are we really capable of making choices? Or is everything just lines in a script that has already been written? 18. Self-causing events. Bootstrap paradox. The bootstrap paradox is one of the most confusing and compelling examples of time travel theories. In this paradox, an object or piece of information enters a loop in time, such that it never truly has a beginning. For example, a time traveler goes to the future, finds a book, then returns to the past and leaves the book with their younger self. Years later, the book is found, and the loop begins again. So, who actually wrote the book? This paradox is also known as the cause without cause, or result without cause. This is because the beginning and end of events become intertwined. In time travel stories, such paradoxes lead to fascinating debates from both a logical and philosophical perspective. The question of whether the universe can accept such a cycle also intrigues scientists. The bootstrap paradox also raises intriguing questions about the origin of knowledge and culture. If an idea or invention enters a loop in time, who truly created it? Can information or objects arise spontaneously in the universe? Such paradoxes deeply shake our perception of reality. In conclusion, the bootstrap paradox is one of the most striking logical puzzles that challenges the limits and possibilities of time travel. This paradox, which questions whether an object or information truly has a source, constitutes one of the most fascinating and mysterious aspects of time travel theories. 19. Ethical issues of time travel. Time travel is not merely a scientific issue, but also a massive ethical debate. Because any intervention in the past or future can affect not only an individual, but the fate of all humanity. A time traveler could save millions of lives by preventing a tragic event in the past, but at the same time, they could trigger unforeseeable disasters through the butterfly effect. In such a case, what is right? At the forefront of ethical issues is the right to intervene in history. How ethical is it for a person to change the past against the will of society or humanity? In time travel stories, we often see heroes grappling with the question, how far should I go, and when should I stop? One of the greatest dilemmas is how someone who wants to correct history can maintain the line between their own interests and the greater good of humanity. Additionally, time travel carries the risk of the misuse of knowledge and technology. Information obtained from the future could lead to devastating consequences in the present. For this reason, in some narratives, time travelers are restricted by temporal laws and ethical rules. Violating these prohibitions can sometimes even threaten the stability of the universe. In conclusion, the ethical issues surrounding time travel are a huge problem that must be solved not only scientifically, but also philosophically and socially. Therefore, the fantasy of time travel always brings with it the question, at what cost? 20. If time travel becomes a reality, what will humanity become? If time travel were to become a reality one day, it would be the greatest turning point in human history. Because the removal of barriers between the past and the future would mean the reconstruction of social order, identities, values, and even reality itself. Humanity would no longer be a prisoner of the past. It would begin to rule the future and rewrite its history. This situation could mean both great freedom and great chaos. Time travel would fundamentally alter humanity's perspective on science and technology, because time would become a dimension that can be conquered, just like space. A society capable of altering the past or foreseeing the future would step into a completely new world, morally, politically, and economically. This would even mean a transformation of the concept of human as we understand it today. However, time travel could also lead to social conflicts and great inequalities. Who will have the right to travel through time? Will the powerful shape history according to their own interests? Or will humanity recognize the dangers of this power and set limits for itself? The impact of time travel on humanity is like walking a tightrope between good and evil, hope and fear. Ultimately, if time travel becomes a reality, all of humanity's current values, institutions, and identities will be called into question. In this new reality, we will need to redefine what it means to be human. Time travel may be both humanity's greatest dream and its greatest nightmare. 21. What would happen first if a time machine were invented? If a time machine is ever invented, it will mark the greatest turning point in human history. First, there will be unprecedented astonishment and admiration in the scientific world. Physicists, engineers, and philosophers will be forced to confront this new reality. The flow of time would no longer be fixed and inevitable. Humanity would stand on the brink of a new era where it could shape history itself. The results of the first experimental journeys would spark debates that would concern all of humanity. The invention of the time machine would have devastating effects on social and political order. Who will have access to this device, and whether states or private institutions will monopolize this technology is a major topic of debate. Interfering with historical events could change political competition forever. A country or individual gaining an advantage through the time machine would upset the balance of the world and become a factor in determining the fate of humanity. Economically, a time machine would bring revolutionary results. Financial markets, historical information, and future investments would take on new meanings. The ability to access information, the past or the future, would redefine wealth and power. At the same time, ethical and legal chaos would ensue. Who will oversee the consequences of time travel? Who will be able to intervene in which events? How will responsibilities be determined? humanity will suddenly be forced to establish a completely new ethical and legal order. In conclusion, the invention of the time machine divides human history into two distinct eras, before and after. The past is no longer just something to be learned, but a realm to be intervened in. The future is no longer merely a hope, but a reality to be lived and observed. The time machine may answer humanity's endless what-ifs, but it also creates new questions and threats. This invention carries humanity to the pinnacle of its dreams and to the heaviest point of its responsibilities. 22. Going back in time and intervening in major historical events. If a time traveler has the chance to go back in time and intervene in major historical events, the course of the world could change radically. For example, changing the outcome of a war, preventing a major disaster, or influencing a leader's decision could lead to a completely different shape of today's society. Such an intervention would grant humans divine power and responsibility, while also bringing ethical, philosophical, and psychological burdens. Interfering with historical events is the most dramatic form of the butterfly effect. Even the smallest change can lead to a chain reaction that creates a completely different world. Perhaps a major war never breaks out. New inventions are made ahead of time, and society's values are completely transformed. However, the new problems and unexpected consequences brought about by these changes create new paradoxes and crises that the time traveler must confront. Such power also elevates humanity's moral responsibility to a higher level. Which events should be intervened in? Which tragedies prevented? Or should history's natural course be left untouched? Balancing individual or national interests with the interests of all humanity becomes nearly impossible. Every decision made by a time traveler becomes the beginning of a new reality and a new humanity. Ultimately, the allure of intervening in the past is matched by the chaos and risks it brings. Perhaps the greatest tragedies of history were inevitable, given the conditions of the moment and the weaknesses of human nature. Time travel also prompts us to ask, if it were possible to change history, could we truly create a better world? 23. Time travel and love. Time travel stories often deal with love, one of the most complex human emotions. Reuniting with a lost lover from the past, seeing future love in advance, or encountering a soulmate in a different era can fundamentally shake a person's understanding of love. The love of a time traveler transcends feelings for a single person. It becomes an expression of longing for an era, a time, and sometimes even a lost life. Love often serves as a guide or source of motivation in time travel. Saving the person they love, making up for a mistake, or reliving a missed happiness drives the time traveler on an irreversible journey. However, the flow of time often deepens the tragedy of love. Lovers may be separated by different eras, and the time barrier between them can become an insurmountable wall. When time travel and love come together, the power of emotions and memory comes to the forefront. A time traveler constantly carries a memory from the past or a hope for the future with them. However, this love is often overshadowed by loneliness, loss, and melancholy. Crossing time sometimes means pushing the boundaries of the heart. The struggle between love and time is one of the deepest paradoxes of the human soul. Ultimately, the theme of time travel and love points to one of humanity's oldest quests. The concepts of time spent together and time lost can forever change the way we understand love and life. For the time traveler, love is not just an emotion, but a meaning sought within infinity. 24. The responsibility that comes with knowing the future. If a person has the chance to see or learn about the future in advance, this knowledge brings great power as well as heavy responsibility. Knowing the future sometimes offers the opportunity to prevent disasters and guide society toward a better future. However, it also complicates the psychology and decisions of the individual, who must bear the burden of events that have not yet occurred. The sense of responsibility becomes one of the greatest burdens of the time traveler. One of the greatest dilemmas of knowing the future is the consequences of sharing or not sharing this knowledge. Taking action to prevent a disaster can trigger the butterfly effect and create completely different problems. On the other hand, keeping the future secret leads to remorse and moral conflicts. It is often impossible for the time traveler to know whether they are doing the right thing. The concept of responsibility blurs the line between individual interests and the common good. If a person tries to change the future to protect their loved ones or themselves, what price will others pay? Knowledge of the future is a great test of a person's pride and desire for power versus their humility and selflessness. Ultimately, knowing the future can be both a curse and a blessing. For a time traveler, every action has the potential to change the world, but the consequences of this change can never be known with certainty in advance. Therefore, the responsibility of knowing the future remains one of the heaviest burdens. 25. Language and communication in time travel. When a time traveler wakes up in a different era or future, one of the most fundamental problems is communication. The evolution of language, the change in meanings and symbols, can make self-expression almost impossible in a new era. Someone traveling to the past may struggle to understand the words used by their ancestors, while someone traveling to the future must cope with new technological terms and cultural codes. Language is not just words. Culture, ways of thinking, and social structures also determine communication. In order to communicate, a time traveler must first understand the spirit of that era and its social codes. Misunderstandings, misinterpretations, or deliberate silence can turn a time traveler into a dangerous or outcast person. From a technological standpoint, while a translation device or universal language may be possible in the future, conveying the emotions, traditions, and deep meanings embedded in language is no easy task. The changing meaning of a word or phrase across eras can leave the time traveler feeling bewildered and alone. At times, silence becomes the most powerful form of communication. Ultimately, the problem of language and communication in time travel is not merely a technical obstacle, but also an existential alienation. Being able to understand beyond language becomes one of the greatest challenges for the time traveler. Time and language are two of the most fundamental elements that determine humanity's roots in the world. 26. Why is being a time traveler so appealing? The idea of becoming a time traveler is one of the deepest desires and fantasies of the human mind. At the root of this fascination lies the desire to recover losses, make amends for regrets, and control the future. Every person has imagined correcting a moment in the past that they couldn't do or did wrong. Similarly, the desire to see how one's own life or humanity will evolve in an unknown future is also very appealing. Time travel makes people feel as if they have godlike powers. The ability to change history or have knowledge about the future is like a rebellion against human helplessness in the face of destiny. This power is considered not only a source of individual satisfaction, but also the key to social progress. Perhaps the appeal of time travel also carries the hope of recreating everything that exists. However, this allure also carries with it the risk of great loneliness and alienation. The time traveler is often a person who has been cut off from their own era, their loved ones, and their social ties. They remain a stranger wherever they go and may get lost in an endless search. Being a time traveler is the ultimate form of both freedom and loneliness. Ultimately, The appeal of being a time traveler is closely linked to humanity's most fundamental fears and desires. Changing the past, or seeing the future, is the most striking expression of humanity's desire for control over life and the world. Being a time traveler is, in essence, pursuing one's what-ifs and maybes. 27. Time travel and immortality. Time travel is also intertwined with the quest for immortality. Throughout human history, various solutions have been sought in the face of the inevitability of death, and various forms of immortality have been described in mythology and religion. Overcoming time, in a sense, means achieving immortality, existing in different eras, and transcending one's own lifespan. A person who travels through time transcends the limits of their own life, even if they are not physically immortal. Being present in the past or future eliminates the sense of finitude in one's own history. A new life and a new identity can be constructed in every era. This situation can also be seen as a modern and scientific interpretation of the idea of immortality. However, when immortality and time travel come together, entirely new problems arise. The burden of an infinite life, the loss of loved ones, identity crises, and social alienation are among the heavy burdens that a time traveler must bear. Existing in every era also means being a stranger in every era. The quest for immortality can sometimes result in great loneliness. Ultimately, the relationship between time travel and immortality is another dimension of humanity's desire to conquer time. This duality, which can be both a dream and a nightmare, forces us to rethink our test with eternity and the meaning of our existence. 28. The psychological side effects of time travel. A person capable of time travel must go through very intense psychological processes. First, living in different eras and constantly adapting to changing worlds can lead to an identity crisis and deep alienation. The time traveler's sense of self may become increasingly fragmented with each journey, risking the loss of their identity, origins, and place in the world. Another psychological effect is the weight of loss and irreversible separation. The time traveler is constantly separated from loved ones, friends, and the world they are accustomed to. Building new relationships and then saying goodbye again on each journey creates emotional exhaustion and a deep sense of loneliness. This can leave the time traveler emotionally drained. Additionally, the ethical responsibilities, guilt, and regrets weighing on the time traveler's shoulders grow heavier. The consequences of interventions in the past or future are unpredictable, and every wrong decision can lead to major disasters. The time traveler's psychology is surrounded by constant anxiety, uncertainty, and decision anxiety. As a result, the psychological side effects of time travel are important not only on an individual level, but also on a social and universal scale. Therefore, being a time traveler is not just an adventure, but also a heavy spiritual journey. 29. The social chaos that time travel will create. The emergence of time travel technology could cause great chaos in human societies. First, the social order and sense of justice would be completely shaken. The fact that everyone has the power to intervene in the past or future threatens the stability of history and the social order. Political, economic, and social structures would all have to be redefined. The powerful could use time for their own gain, rewriting history to deepen social inequalities. At the same time, individuals would gain greater control over their own lives. Everyone would rush to the time machine to correct past mistakes or secure future advantages. This would exponentially increase social competition and conflict. From an ethical and legal perspective, significant uncertainty arises. Who will have the right to time travel? Which events can be interfered with? How will the consequences of a time traveler's actions be monitored? Justice systems and the overall structure of society will have to change completely. Concepts such as social trust, predictability, and solidarity will suffer significant damage. In conclusion, the chaos created by time travel technology poses a revolutionary problem, not only on a technical level, but also on a philosophical and social level. Perhaps this is why, in many works of science fiction, time travel is either strictly regulated by laws or completely banned. Controlling time travel may be necessary for the continuation of social order. 30. Is it possible to receive messages from the future? Receiving messages from the future is one of the most fascinating and controversial aspects of time travel theories. Such communication not only enables the flow of information between the past and the future, but also calls into question the laws of causality in the universe. If it is possible to receive information from the future, it would directly influence our current decisions and actions. In physics, the concept of retrocausality, or backward causality, explores this idea. Some quantum theories suggest that information flow may be possible in both directions of time. However, observing the future or receiving messages from the future is currently impossible with our current scientific knowledge. Nevertheless, this idea continues to captivate the human mind with endless curiosity. Messages from the future are often explored in popular culture, particularly around themes such as preventing disasters, making miraculous discoveries in advance, or changing social order. In such stories, the dilemma and moral responsibility faced by the recipient of the message are often central. Possessing such knowledge always comes with a great burden. In conclusion, receiving messages from the future may currently be nothing more than a fantasy. However, this idea is one of the most mysterious and appealing aspects of time travel in the human imagination. If such communication were ever possible, humanity would be forced to confront a whole new reality and set of responsibilities. 31. Time travel and finance. The impact of time travel on the financial world is one of the topics that most radically combines imagination and reality. The ability of an individual or an institution to obtain financial information by traveling to the past or future would create an unprecedented power imbalance in history. For example, knowing in advance the biggest rises or falls in the stock market, accumulating wealth in golden ages, accurately predicting the moment when cryptocurrencies will explode, or being aware of massive economic crises before they occur. Each of these would be just a few of the domino effects that time travel could unleash in the financial world. If a time traveler were to use prior knowledge of a past stock market crash to shape their investments, we could find ourselves in a world where fortunes and power shift rapidly. Potential time traveler investors could disrupt not only their own interests, but also the balance of entire economies, even destabilizing financial systems. Access to information eliminates traditional competition entirely. Thus, wealth becomes dependent not only on talent or luck, but also on the ability to manipulate time. The ethical and legal consequences of financial manipulation through time travel open up a whole new area of debate. Wealth and power become concentrated in the hands of a few, and income distribution becomes extremely unequal. Governments, central banks, and regulatory bodies are forced to develop new laws and protection systems to counter the threat of time travel. The concepts of fair distribution of information and market equality are completely redefined. Perhaps states will begin to use time travel as a financial weapon, and time spies will become the most dangerous figures of the new era. Ultimately, time travel creates a rupture in the financial world that has the power to change not only individual fortunes, but the fate of entire societies. In a world where money, information, and decisions move freely across time. The economy no longer operates according to old rules. As markets break free from historical cycles and evolve into a new order, classical financial theories are forced to give way to new paradigms based on the bending of time. As financial opportunities become endless, risks reach unprecedented levels. A new era begins in humanity's relationship with money. Now, every investment is shaped not only by reason and knowledge, but also by who controls time. 32 people lost in the past, and time travel. Throughout history, people who mysteriously disappeared have always raised the question, were they time travelers in the collective memory? From ancient times to the modern age, the stories of people who were never found again have been the source of inspiration for time travel legends. Whether a king, a researcher, or an adventurer, these figures who disappear one day and are never heard from again evoke both fear and fascination in the human mind. Did some people who truly disappeared in the past open the veil of time and awaken in another era? In a world where time travel is theoretically possible, missing people take on very different meanings. Perhaps they fell into a time fracture unintentionally and were swept into another era. Such a journey could be the beginning of a new life and new identities, beyond a mere disappearance. The lost person becomes a stranger in the place they have arrived, alone, frightened, and unable to find any trace of their past. They lose their own era, language, and loved ones, stepping instead into a life filled with uncertainty and transformation. The disappearance of a time traveler has both psychological and social consequences. While trying to adapt to the new era, their longing for their old life never fades. Their family and loved ones are left to cope with an inexplicable loss, which gives rise to both tragic and legendary stories. Sometimes, centuries later, the name of a person who disappeared appears again in a history book, or an archaeologist finds the belongings of someone who disappeared in the past in a completely different place. All these coincidences further strengthen the legend of time travel. The stories of people lost in the past symbolize that time travel is not merely a theoretical possibility, but also reflects humanity's relationship with the unknown. Such disappearances remind us of how fragile and mysterious time truly is. Perhaps one day, the key to these mysteries will be unlocked, and the lost people will return to their own time, or at least to their stories. While time travel offers the promise of great adventure and freedom, it also symbolizes loss, oblivion, and eternal alienation. 33. Time travel and religions. Religions and sacred texts have played a decisive role throughout history in shaping humanity's perception of time and its relationship with it. In many religions, the beginning and end of time are depicted as sacred. Motifs such as creation, apocalypse, and resurrection support the idea that time is a cycle. The concept of time travel can conflict with religious teachings, but it can also serve to reinforce them in some ways. The miracles of gods or prophets that transcend time, when combined with the idea of an omniscient will, open up both a mystical and philosophical realm for the theme of time travel. In some belief systems, time travel is associated with sacred or demonic powers. Traveling to the past or future is sometimes seen as a reward, sometimes as a curse. In some legends, a prophet or saint gains access to the knowledge of the past or future and guides society. On the other hand, time travel can also be seen as defying the order of nature in some religions. In this case, human interference in the divine plan may be considered a great sin or arrogance. The emergence of time travel technology could lead to fundamental changes in religious teachings. Concepts such as immortality, rebirth, or prophecy could cease to be seen as miraculous events and instead be explained through scientific means. This, in turn, could create significant debate and identity crises among believers. Some communities may believe that transcending time means getting closer to God, while others may believe that it is an attempt by humans to exceed their limits. Ultimately, the relationship between time travel and religion is shaped by humanity's answers to existential questions. Overcoming time is sometimes interpreted as a search for holiness, while at other times it is seen as human arrogance and boundlessness. The idea of time travel adds new meanings to the evolution of religions, rituals, and belief systems. It forces humanity to ask again and again, where did we come from, and where are we going? 34. Time travel and prophecies. Prophecies are one of humanity's oldest beliefs and rituals. The desire to see the future and know the unknown has manifested itself in different ways in every society. In ancient times, this role was played by seers and mediums, while in modern times, it is played by science fiction writers and futurists. Time travel takes the idea of prophecy to a whole new level. A time traveler who goes to the future and sees what happens with their own eyes becomes a living prophet, which raises profound questions about the source and meaning of prophecies. Thanks to time travel, prophecies are no longer just predictions or products of inspiration. They become actual, experienced events. In such a situation, the accuracy and reliability of prophecies become indisputable. However, this situation also fundamentally shakes people's free will and understanding of destiny. Because knowing with certainty what will happen in the future can lead people to believe that their choices are meaningless. This, in turn, can change the functions of prophecies as sources of hope and fear. At the same time, the social and psychological effects of time travel also transform the function of prophecies. The information provided by a time traveler can cause panic, hope, or apathy in society. When people know the certainty of the future, they either rebel against it or accept it completely. A time traveler's prophecies can sometimes be a recipe for salvation, and sometimes a harbinger of disaster. Ultimately, the relationship between time travel and prophecies embodies both humanity's fear and curiosity toward the unknown. Seeing the future can be both the greatest blessing and the heaviest curse. As time travel lifts the veil of mystery surrounding prophecies, it plunges humanity into an endless debate about whether we are the architects or the prisoners of our own destiny. 35. The aging process in time travel. The idea of time travel also has extraordinary effects on the human body and biology. Traveling back and forth between different eras raises great uncertainty about how the biological aging process will work. According to the theory of relativity, a person traveling at close to the speed of light ages much more slowly than the outside world. However, upon returning, they would find their loved ones aged or even deceased. This situation deeply affects the time traveler's life, not only physically, but also emotionally. Furthermore, the difference between the time traveler's biological clock and the external world's clock shakes the individual's sense of identity and belonging. Perhaps the time traveler, who was young in their own time, wakes up in the future with an aged body. Or, conversely, they travel to the future and maintain their youth, only to return to the past and age suddenly. The body's adaptation to such rapidly changing time frames causes major biological, psychological, and social problems. The different way the aging process works in time travel also leads to deep cracks in social relationships. Family ties, friendships, and social roles make it difficult for the time traveler to adapt to the moment and place. In a world where everyone ages, someone who remains young alone, or someone who suddenly ages when everyone else is young, inevitably experiences social exclusion, loneliness, and an identity crisis. This shows how time travel can challenge humans both physically and mentally. In conclusion, aging in time travel is not merely a physical law or biological reality. It is also an experience that can deeply wound a person's sense of existence, identity, and belonging. Perhaps this is why the heroes in time travel stories are always a little tired, lonely, and sad. By the way, if you like my video and subscribe, that's the most effective way to support me. 36. Being stuck in time. One of the worst things that can happen to someone who sets out on a time travel adventure is getting stuck in time. This means being trapped in the past, the future, or a void outside of time. The time traveler has no chance of returning to their own time. They are separated from their loved ones, their identity, and everything they are accustomed to forever. This marks the beginning of both great fear and existential loneliness. Being stuck in time causes deep trauma in the human psyche. Perhaps the traveler goes back thousands of years and gets lost in a primitive society, or perhaps they find themselves alone in a distant future, ruled by artificial intelligence. In either case, they struggle to adapt to their new world, but often fail to fully integrate. A homeless existence shakes the time traveler's sense of identity and belonging to its core. Being physically stuck in time also puts extreme strain on the body and mind. Gravity, climate, nutrition, and diseases that vary across different time periods can threaten the time traveler's very existence. Someone who is immune to diseases in one era could lose their life to the simplest microbe in another. The time traveler's struggle for survival turns every moment into a fight for life. Ultimately, being stuck in time is one of the most terrifying and dramatic consequences of time travel. The traveler, who set out on a journey to rewrite their own story, may be condemned to eternal alienation and loss. Perhaps this is why time travel stories always contain a warning. Playing with time is sometimes a game with no return. 37. Who will be the first human to travel through time? If time travel becomes a reality, the question of who will be the first traveler ignites humanity's collective curiosity and imagination. Will it be a scientist, an adventurer, or someone chosen by governments or corporations? This person will take one of the greatest steps in human history. Like the first person to set foot on the moon, the first person to travel beyond time will become a symbol and a hero. Being the first time traveler requires not only great courage, but also extraordinary responsibility. This individual is responsible for both their own safety and the greater good of humanity. Everything they experience in their destination could shape the history we know and the future we envision. Perhaps this is why the first traveler must be carefully selected and trained. Their success or failure could determine the entire future of time travel. Society follows the story of the first time traveler with great excitement. Media, literature, and art turn this person's journey into a legend. Whether the traveler will return, what they will see, and what they will change become endless topics of discussion and curiosity. Will this person be a hero or a victim? Will their journey appeal to humanity's hopes or fears? Ultimately, the identity of the first person to travel through time is not merely an individual achievement. It becomes a symbol of humanity's collective courage, curiosity, and destiny. Their steps signify the closing of one era and the opening of another. The first traveler will be both humanity's hero and the guardian of the unknown. 38. The existential consequences of time travel. Time travel is not merely a physical movement. It is an event that raises the most fundamental questions about human existence. An intervention in the past can fundamentally alter a person's life, identity, and relationships. A journey into the future shakes one's beliefs about destiny and free will. Observing one's own childhood, parents, or even one's own birth forces one to rethink the meaning of existence. From an existential perspective, time travel leaves humans face to face with the question, who am I? A person who lives in different eras and leads different lives questions which identity they belong to. The time traveler is not only exposed to their own past or future, but also to completely different realities and identities. This situation creates both a great sense of freedom and a deep feeling of loss in the individual. Furthermore, the concept of time travel is directly linked to death, immortality, and the search for meaning. If humans can transcend time, does death cease to be the end? Can an individual who experiences an infinite number of lives and experiences ultimately lose the meaning of their existence? The existential crisis created by time travel becomes a frequently explored theme in both philosophy and literature. In conclusion, the existential consequences of time travel add new answers and new questions to humanity's most ancient questions. Transcending time is both a promise of freedom and loneliness, of salvation and loss. As humans transcend time, they actually rediscover themselves and their own reality. 39. Time travel and the encounter with oneself. One of the strangest and deepest issues of time travel is the possibility of the traveler encountering their own past or future self. This is an extraordinary event, not only logically, but also psychologically and philosophically. A person's confrontation with their own youth or old age is one of the most radical forms of personal development, change, and identity crisis. Looking at oneself from the outside, evaluating one's own actions, and even giving oneself advice. All of these cause a person to question their essence and identity. A time traveler who encounters themselves often experiences unexpected emotions. Perhaps they want to make up for their past mistakes. Perhaps they feel pride or shame in their future self. This encounter brings to the surface the individual's own change, regrets, hopes, and fears. At times, the traveler's interaction with their past or future self gives rise to paradoxes and mind games. If they teach their past self something, will their future self change? Such encounters are among the most fascinating and confusing consequences of time travel. At the same time, encountering oneself raises questions about self-identity and free will. If a person sees their past mistakes and changes, will their future also change? Or is change inevitable? Such questions further deepen the impact of time travel on human psychology. Ultimately, encountering oneself in time travel is both a confrontation and a reconciliation experience. This encounter allows the individual to re-evaluate their own story, choices, and changes. Perhaps the greatest journey of humanity is not one through time, but one within oneself. 40. Time travel and the future of humanity. Time travel feeds both the hopes and fears of humanity's future. If humans can travel to the future and learn what will happen there, social order, technology, morality, and ways of life could change radically. A community could learn about future disasters in advance and take precautions today, or it could bring future developments to the present and rapidly transform civilization. Time travel would be a turning point in human evolution. However, this leap also means both great risk and great responsibility. Knowledge about the future could deepen social inequalities. Who gets to travel to the future and bring back information, and who gets to benefit from that information is a major point of debate. Additionally, technologies and information brought back from the future could disrupt today's society. Cultural shock, moral crises, and political struggles would be inevitable. The impact of time travel on humanity's future is not only technical and social, but also an existential transformation. Humans will no longer be beings that merely live in the present. They will view time as another dimension to be conquered, much like they have conquered space. This fundamentally alters how humans perceive themselves, society, and the universe. Each individual bears responsibility for both their own destiny and the future of humanity. In conclusion, time travel is a turning point in the future of humanity. It will either be the key to great progress and prosperity, or it will open the doors to disaster and chaos. Traveling to the future will continue to be both humanity's greatest hope and its deepest fear. 41. Time travel and fear. Although the idea of time travel may seem like an adventure, a promise of freedom and hope at first glance, deep within this dream lie great fears and uncertainties. Playing with the flow of time means challenging the laws of the universe, which is to face the purest form of the unknown. Knowing that an intervention in the past could lead to endless consequences leaves one with a profound sense of anxiety and responsibility. At the same time, time travel is a terrifying experience, both physically and psychologically. Being unable to adapt to different eras, finding oneself alone in new worlds, or encountering dangerous situations in the past or future can confront a person with existential dread. The constant threat and danger faced by a time traveler fuel the instinct for survival and paranoia. One of the greatest fears is getting stuck in time and never being able to return. The breakdown of the time machine, falling into the trap of an unexpected paradox, or being trapped in a completely different reality are the darkest nightmares of a time traveler. Getting lost in the labyrinth of time leads to the loss of one's self and identity. In conclusion, time travel inspires both great admiration and deep fear in humans. These fears form the most dramatic and memorable parts of time travel stories. Transcending the boundaries of time can sometimes be not only freedom, but also imprisonment. 42. Time travel and the perception of reality. The idea of time travel fundamentally shakes the human perception of reality. When the boundaries between time and space are removed, the concepts of now and here lose their meaning. A person can exist in the past and the future at the same time, moving between different lives and identities. This shows that reality is not something fixed and reliable, but rather flexible and fragile. For someone who travels through time, reality becomes a constantly changing playground. Every intervention creates a new past and future, leading to deep confusion about what is real. At times, a traveler may realize that they are living in multiple realities, where memories, relationships, and identities are constantly shifting. This situation also threatens the psychological balance of the individual. At the same time, time travel technology also disrupts the concept of social reality. History becomes a narrative that can be changed. In a world where the past and future are constantly intertwined, the concepts of social memory and identity also dissolve. This completely reshapes the relationship between society and the individual with reality. In conclusion, the relationship between time travel and the perception of reality is one of the deepest existential problems faced by humans on both an individual and societal level. Reality becomes a playground for time and consciousness. To transcend time is to transform truth. 43. Time travel and entropy. Entropy, one of the fundamental laws of the universe, refers to the increase of disorder and chaos over time. Time travel emerges as a concept that challenges the law of entropy, even redefining it. If a person travels back in time and changes an event, how does this intervention affect the order of the universe? Is time travel a resistance to the inevitable rise of entropy, or is it the beginning of a new chaos? In physics, entropy is one of the main principles that determine the direction of time. The movement of a system from the past to the future is possible through the increase of entropy. However, time travel means going against this arrow. If a time traveler attempts to reduce entropy by altering the past, how would the universe respond to this intervention? Perhaps the fundamental laws of entropy render time travel impossible. Or perhaps time travel ignites the fuse of a new entropy explosion. The concept of entropy is also closely related to the meaning of life, death, and order. In time travel, the boundaries between life and death become blurred. The old order is destroyed, and a new chaos emerges. In this process, the time traveler themselves becomes a part of entropy. Every intervention disrupts the balance of the universe and leads to new problems. Ultimately, the relationship between time travel and entropy raises humanity's most fundamental questions about the universe and existence. Disrupting order, interfering with the past, increasing chaos. Time travel is an endless struggle against the inevitable rise of entropy. 44. Is time travel an illusion or humanity's destiny? For some, the concept of time travel is just a dream, a fantasy, an illusion. Within the current limits of science, traveling to the past or future still seems practically impossible. However, throughout human history, many things that were once deemed impossible have become reality. Time travel may one day become a reality through technological and scientific breakthroughs, or it may remain a fairy tale forever. This dilemma determines how humanity perceives itself and its destiny. If time travel is an illusion, it is a manifestation of humanity's infinite imagination and desire to challenge the universe. But if it is destiny, this dream will eventually come true, and humanity will usher in a new era. The end of this journey means not only the rewriting of the past and the future, but also the rewriting of humanity itself. The question of whether time travel is real or not is a point where science, philosophy, art, and religion meet. This journey not only opens new doors for humanity, but also brings great responsibilities and new crises. Perhaps humanity is preparing its own end, or a new beginning while playing with time. Ultimately, it is impossible to know for certain whether time travel is an illusion or destiny. But one thing is certain: the human mind and imagination will be preoccupied with this question forever. Transcending time may be humanity's ultimate test. It may be the greatest adventure that will determine the meaning of existence and the direction of the future. 45. Time travel and collective memory. The way societies perceive their past and future is shaped by the concept of collective memory. When time travel becomes possible, the reliability and authority of social memory are shaken. When a time traveler changes the course of history or major events, the content of collective memory is instantly rewritten. Thus, a society's identity, values, and narratives become constantly variable and fragile. Time travel blurs the line between individual and collective memory. History is no longer something passed down from generation to generation, but a field that is constantly intervened in and reimagined. Societies store major traumas and victories in their collective memory. These are the cornerstones of national identity. However, when a time traveler alters a war, disaster, or turning point from the past, the entire collective memory suddenly loses its meaning. People begin to doubt which history is real. Social values, celebrations, mourning rituals, and traditions redefine themselves according to a constantly changing past. With time travel, collective memory ceases to be a compass and becomes an endless field of uncertainty. Furthermore, time travel can be used for social manipulation and propaganda. Powerful groups may abuse time travel technology to rewrite history as they see fit. societies experience the shock and insecurity of living in a world where the past they once believed in can be erased overnight. In this chaos, individuals inevitably turn to their own memories and experiences for solace. Ultimately, the relationship between time travel and collective memory has a revolutionary impact on social identity and historical consciousness. The past is no longer just something that is remembered, but something that can be actively changed. This leads people to question even the most fundamental bonds they have with themselves and their society. 46. The role and limits of technology in time travel. One of the first things that comes to mind when we think of time travel is humanity's test with technology. Creating a time machine is not only a testament to science and engineering, but also to human will, curiosity, and ambition. Technology can open the doors to time travel, but it also faces significant limitations. Energy requirements, the structure of space-time, resolving paradoxes, and the durability of the human body are among the most fundamental obstacles technology faces. In the scientific community, whether time travel is practically possible remains a subject of intense debate. While theoretical models propose methods such as wormholes, rotating black holes, and quantum tunneling, bringing these concepts to life with current technology is nearly impossible. The amount of energy required for time travel could surpass the total energy of all stars in the universe. Furthermore, concepts such as exotic matter or negative energy, which would maintain the structural stability of space-time, are still theoretical. The limits of technology are not only physical and mathematical obstacles. Ethical and social responsibilities also pose a major barrier. The development of a time machine would spark a major debate over who would gain access to this power and how it would be regulated. Nations, corporations, or individuals might compete to control time, potentially leading to a new time-technology Cold War. In conclusion, technology is both the key and the lock in time travel. As humanity pushes its own boundaries, it must also confront the limits of the universe and its own nature. While technology fuels the dream of transcending time, it also serves as a mirror to humanity's arrogance and fragility. 47. Time, travel, and the concept of crime. One of the most intriguing social consequences of time travel is its impact on the definition and meaning of crime. If a person travels back in time and prevents a crime, how does this affect the current justice system? Or does knowing about a crime that will be committed in the future make someone guilty? Time travel fills the concept of crime with complex paradoxes and ethical dilemmas. Is a crime that has not been committed the result of the time traveler's intervention, or did it happen as part of the natural course of events? Committing a crime in time travel can affect not only the fate of an individual, but also that of an entire society. A person may go back in time to eliminate a crime they committed in the past. In this case, their current life and relationships would be completely changed. The punishment, pardon, and memory of a crime are completely redefined by time travel. Legal systems may not know how to judge the actions of a time traveler. Additionally, time travel gives rise to new types of crimes. Crimes such as time trafficking, historical manipulation, or creating paradoxes require new regulations beyond classical legal norms. Society is forced to rethink the concepts of crime and justice and redraw the boundaries of time and history. Time travel drags the quest for justice into endless confusion and debate. In conclusion, the relationship between time travel and crime overturns everything we know about human free will, responsibility, and social order. For time travelers, crime and justice are no longer fixed concepts. They are constantly changing, open to negotiation, and full of infinite possibilities. 48. Time travel and biological evolution. Time travel has the power to affect not only human society, but also the evolution and biological development of living beings. If a person traveling to the past prevents or accelerates the extinction of a species, the evolutionary process may take a completely different direction. A time traveler who transports genetic material to different eras can fundamentally alter the biological balance of the universe. Such interventions can affect not just a single species, but entire ecosystems. In evolutionary biology, every small change can have enormous consequences in the long run. If a time traveler eliminates a bacterial species in the past, humanity may never have existed. Or another organism could have reached the pinnacle of evolution. A seed or animal transported to the future could disrupt the nature and balance of that era. Such interventions demonstrate that humans can directly influence not only their own history, but also the very existence of the universe. Time travel also causes humans to question their own evolution. Encountering a more advanced human species in the future leads to a re-evaluation of humanity's place in evolution. Or, confronting ancestors from the past raises new questions about humanity's biological heritage and identity. Time travel transforms humans into both observers and active participants in the evolutionary process. In conclusion, the relationship between time travel and biological evolution fundamentally changes humanity's perspective on nature, itself, and other living beings. Evolution is no longer merely a natural process. It becomes a realm that can be consciously altered through the bending of time. This, in turn, redefines the meaning of biology and life, as well as humanity's role within them. 49. Time travel and consciousness transfer. Time travel is not just a journey that transcends the body, but also the mind and consciousness. The idea of a person transferring their consciousness to different eras, bodies, or even digital environments is increasingly being discussed in contemporary science and philosophy. The transfer of consciousness backward or forward in time brings with it concepts such as body switching, mind migration, or artificial intelligence integration. The continuity and integrity of consciousness in time travel have revolutionary effects on human identity and existence. The transfer of consciousness expands the classical concept of time travel. Perhaps one day, rather than physically traveling through time, we will only travel to the past or future as minds. Our bodies may no longer exist in another era, but our consciousness could continue to exist in different bodies or digital environments. This situation redefines fundamental concepts such as death and immortality, identity and memory, belonging and reality. At the same time, consciousness transfer raises ethical and psychological issues. If a person exists in multiple eras, in multiple bodies, or merged with artificial intelligence, how do they preserve their identity? The fragmentation of consciousness, conflicting memories, and the emergence of new personalities deeply affect human psychology. Consciousness transfer fundamentally challenges the questions of who we are and how long we exist. Ultimately, time travel and consciousness transfer are among the most ambitious endeavors to discover the timeless essence of humanity. Perhaps one day, time travel will not be a physical experience, but a mental one. Humans will find themselves beyond time, in an endless flow of identities and consciousness. The idea of time travel allows us to explore the furthest reaches of the human mind, question the rules of the universe, and challenge our own existence. The desire to go back in time to correct mistakes, travel to the future to learn our fate, or find those lost in time is, in essence, a reflection of humanity's never-ending quest. However, we see that time travel is not merely a science fiction fantasy. It is also an open-ended adventure filled with great responsibilities, ethical dilemmas, psychological tests, and social transformation. Perhaps one day, we will truly break the chains of time and travel freely between the past and the future. When that day comes, what will matter is not which era we go to, but how prepared we are to face ourselves, our choices, and humanity. Because transcending time begins with understanding ourselves and the moment we live in. If you enjoyed this mysterious journey, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the Liminal Science channel. Your support helps us bring the deep silence of the universe, the magic of the planets, and the boundless imagination of science to more people. Remember, the universe is not just made of stars. It is also made of the lights within the darkness, the silent whispers of space, and the questions of the curious mind. The path to truth sometimes begins not with the brilliance of a supernova, but with the whisper of a thought. Stay with us and continue to explore the unknown together.